All right, Ethan Skolnick here for the first edition of our Miami Dolphins show, which is called, what's it called again, Alfredo? What we come up with? Yard Prep. Yard Prep. Right, that's right. I was really prepared. This is an extension of 3 yards per carry and our extra yard coverage here on 5 Reasons Sports. We've had so much success with the Heat streams before and after games. We're going to continue to do those with Alphonse Sidney hosting the post-game ones and me hosting the pre-game ones. We're going to continue to do that as soon as the playoffs resume. Game 1, obviously, against the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals coming up on Tuesday. We don't have a time for that yet. It's either going to be 6:30 or 8:30 for the game, so we'll be on 45 minutes before. Today we're going to be on a little bit before the Dolphins open their 2020 season against the New England Patriots up in Foxborough. I think this game is as notable for who's not there as who is there, obviously. No Tom Brady for the first time, I guess, since the year 2000. That the Dolphins would play the Patriots without Tom Brady. I guess they played Matt Castle once in 2008, but other than that, and obviously who's not starting for the Miami Dolphins today, Tua is not starting, of course. Ryan Fitzpatrick is, although we do expect we may see Tua at some point before this season is over. To start out, we're going to have others join the show today, but I've got David Fernandez on my right. He's got the Merino jersey up there. So we'll start off with him, and also with Alfredo Arteaga. You know him from 3 yards per carry. I'm wearing one of the Dolphin shirts that we have. We think we've got 7 Tua shirts now. We do not have a Fitzmagic shirt, although if they beat the Patriots again today, we may need one of those. Let's get right to it, Alfredo, with some of the news of the day. There were a lot of Dolphin players who were kind of banged up during practice this week, were limited in practice. It seemed like when they listed it, it was like, okay, here's the 6 most important players on the team. And particularly everybody they have on the outside, whether it's their corners or their receivers. But it seems like everybody is playing as far as we know, correct?
Yes, and it's kind of strange to get here on a Sunday and we're going to have football today and bitch about something, but for whatever reason, Devontae Parker kept disappearing in training camp the last 2 weeks, and then he was gone for 4 days. Mm-hmm. And the team kept saying, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with him." It turns out it was a hamstring injury, and he's good to go. And on the other side, Stephon Gilmore, if you remember Week 17 last year, their tussle, Stephon Gilmore might be a game-time decision due to his hamstring. So that's a big key going forward. But the team is absolutely healthy. Everybody's good to go. I believe only Clayton Fagellum is the only one that has shown up on the injury report for today. So they're good to go. No excuses.
And with that, I guess let's get to the other sort of big topic of the day, which is that there was a lot of criticism of the NFL that they didn't have a plan when it came to COVID as compared to, say, the NBA and the NHL. Of course, MLB was an abject disaster, particularly here with the Marlins, as David can speak to. Yeah. But Marlins and the Cardinals. But it does appear that the NFL at least got it right to get to the season without any issues. No one tested positive over the weekend. Everybody is available to play. I guess we have to, I don't know. I know we don't love doing this generally, but I guess we've got to give Roger Goodell a little bit of credit.
I would say so. And it was a pretty simple plan. I laid it out on a couple of podcasts ago on 3 yards per carry. And I laid it out what they were attempting to do. And it seems to be working so far, which is they're trying to quarantine the team come Friday, and then they're doing constant testing right up to game day. So once they test for the last time on game day, they know who's ready and who's not and who has to go on the COVID list. So they have a very small window where you can allow for infection, which is Friday through game day. Mm-hmm. So it seems to be working. It's, you can't argue with their testing regime. The other day they tested 58,000. They had 58,000 tests go through, and only 6 were positive, and 5 of them were coaches. So I think players have taken it seriously, and they know they have to be. Availability is kind of important for this season. So they're being pretty responsible, and I think the testing regime has worked.
All right, David, let's get to it. No preseason. Typically, we come into this, and everybody's been arguing about who should have been cut, who shouldn't have been cut. We have sort of a better sense of where the team is going to go. I feel like there's complete mystery this year, and not just because of no preseason games, but the way they limited the media in practices, as Alfredo can speak to. Both he and I were out there at Dolphins camp. It was pretty much useless to actually be there because what you were allowed to see, you weren't allowed to report. And so I don't know what we're going to get from this team. I don't know what we're going to get from any team this year.
Yeah, listen, that's the thing going into this season, right? I mean, it doesn't even feel like the start of a football season, right? Like, people with fantasy drafts that kind of crept up on them. And then obviously without a preseason, that's kind of our lead in, right? We have the training camp and then 4 preseason games. And we really get the sense of what the team looks like and who, might have the potential to sort of be a breakout star at some level. But we didn't get any of that this year, right? We had the game on Thursday. And then, we've had a couple college games kind of sprinkled in, right? With the Canes getting their win. But it's not kind of the normal lead into a football season. So it feels like we're here all of a sudden. And, the questions that Dolphins fans have moving into this game, there are probably more questions heading into week 1 than maybe ever before, right? Because we haven't seen what the new offensive line looks like, right? Mm-hmm. We haven't seen, Xavier Howard and Byron Jones working together for any measure of time in the defensive backfield. We don't know what the running game mix is going to look like, right? So there are so many questions moving into this season that, not having a preseason and not having, the sort of normal open availability at training camp has really led to those questions. And then, some of those questions will be answered here today, and hopefully those answers will be positive ones.
All right, let's tee up with this, Alfredo, and obviously we've got a newcomer here. I'll allow him to introduce himself. Let's get to you on this, Alfredo. So give me, for your perspective, and again, I know it was difficult to kind of gauge everything, but you guys talked a lot about some of these battles on 3 yards per carry. How many of the 53 did you nail, by the way?
I got 48 of them.
Okay, so you were pretty dead on in terms of what they did. First thing, what was your biggest surprise cut? Let's start there.
Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen. I thought he was going to make it on, and
it's the easy one.
Yeah, that's the easy one. And I would say the other one that kind of it was kind of a surprise because of how loud. Because you look for guys that are loud in practice, meaning that they make noise, they make plays, they get your attention. Dietrich Nichols, when he was cut, I was surprised because I thought he had played his way onto the team, but I guess they weren't interested in 26-year-old walk-ons,
CK, we got Chris Kaufman here with us, CK Parrott from 3 yards per carry. Let me cycle back to you on a question that I asked David. And we've never had a season like this where, you didn't have preseason games to gauge anything strictly based off of practices. Do you think that this scenario in any way helps or hurts the Dolphins in terms of, again, sort of a lot of just everything being different?
Well, I think that in as much as the Dolphins are a team that changed their game plan week to week, and they're not, there are certain teams in the league that don't try to hide the fact that we are who we are and this is what we're going to do. I think the Steelers for a long time have been a lot like that, particularly on defense. The Bill Belichick, kind of tree is more of a there are certain things that they're going to do week to week, like they're going to favor a lot of man coverage, but they also change their game plans week to week. So they try and be a variable compared to other teams. Those teams are going to be helped probably a little bit more by not having preseason games, not having a lot of information on what everybody's doing, if that makes sense. Whereas the other teams are going to be, what they're going to do if you know the coaching staff and their history. But there's kind of that cuts both ways, because the teams that know who they are, know what they're going to do. If they've got multiple years of history of a lot of those players having been together for a while and coaches been together for a while, and the consistency there, I think the consistency helps those teams. Because this is such a ridiculous circumstance start to the season, and it's been a truncated training camp and not a whole lot of training. So if you're trying to install a whole lot of different schemes and a whole lot of variability into what you're doing, don't be surprised you get out there and it falls flat because your players aren't getting it. Gotcha. And then whereas at Kansas City, they know. they've got players that have been there and they know their offense, and they come right out of the gates and they're looking like they're running on all cylinders.
Louis, let's switch to you on this, Louis. Louis Sung joins us. You're jumping on a moving train, but to CK's point, obviously with the Patriots, there's 20 years of institutional knowledge from a coaching standpoint, but new quarterback, a lot of new players, more COVID opt-outs than any other team in the league, in addition to everybody else that they got rid of. What kind of Patriots team do you expect to see out of the gate?
So out of the gate, I'm honestly not going to be expecting that much, because I don't care if your coach is Bill Belichick, Don Shula, or Vince Lombardi himself. There's going to be growing pains with any new team, with any team that has not had the ability to go to training camp, a full training camp, no preseason to work out any kinks. And let's be honest about something. As much as we want to say Cam Newton is a really good quarterback, he's not Tom Brady. He hasn't been in the Patriots offense for almost 20 years. He has to basically make this brand new offense that I'm sure that Belichick and company have kind of tried to make tailored to him somewhat, but it's still a brand new offense. It's not the same offense he's ran in Carolina, so it's going to be brand new for him. His weapons are subpar, to say the least, so it's not going to be very easy for Cam Newton to be able to move forward at the very least at the very beginning. So if there was ever an opportunity for the Dolphins to continue their streak, let's call it a streak, of winning games in Foxborough, this would be the year to do it, just because, again, there's not really a lot going for the Patriots right now. Their defense has been severely weakened by all the losses they've had. The offense, there's barely anything there at this point. And again, Tom Brady manages to make magic happen. Cam can too, but in a very different way, and I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. A lot of it actually hinges on how healthy he is, which in the past few years he hasn't been that healthy. So he's had his own set of struggles. And also, let's be honest about something. With how big accuracy is in a normally Patriots offense, Cam Newton, for all his good he's not the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. It's not like his accuracy numbers are always at the tip top of the league every single year. He has his struggles too. So quite frankly, I'm thinking that this Patriots team is very vulnerable. And if I were the Dolphins, I would want to get this season started off right by making not just a win, a decisive win, because at least from a paper talent level, I would say the Dolphins actually beat out the Patriots on that front.
Well, I want to ask something about, again, obviously covering the NBA and the bubble for the past 2 months, we've kind of seen, how things flatten out when you don't have home crowds, right? And how it's affected different teams, how it's affected young players and all the rest of that. I can't really get a feel for how it's going to affect NFL teams on the road. You still have to travel, right? It's not a bubble. So there's still the issue of the travel part of it, of not being in your own bed, of all the rest of that stuff that players will talk about. But you don't have the crowd element, right? Not in any significant way. So how do you guys think, I'll start with you, Alfredo, how do you think that's going to affect teams? Are we going to see home road splits at all this year, or is it pretty much going to be wherever they play, they play?
Well, we got to see how the officials take it, right? Because for years you were expecting that strange, odd call that would come in the fourth quarter in a New England Patriots game. But it's more of the momentum that is built through a home crowd, and that place is a snake pit. It just is. Every single year, the Dolphins have had decent teams that have gone up there and had 14-point leads. I believe it was 2014 when they went up there. They had a 14-point lead, and all hell broke loose in the fourth quarter. It's just one snowball after another.
2002 is to me the one that jumps out the most. That's
yes.
The one I'm responsible for, because I congratulated Rick Spielman on making the playoffs at halftime.
You take one bad call, that crowd gets behind them, their defense gets going, their pass rush gets going, they start running the ball successfully, they hit a big play, and it just snowballs on you. And that's usually how it works in the NFL. This year's a little bit different. There's not going to be any fans. They're talking about piping in crowd noise in a few of the stadiums for today. I don't know, what difference that's going to make. So it should be a level playing field. The only advantage that home teams are going to have is the familiarity of playing on their own field, because believe it or not, there's 32 fields, and they're all different. All of them are absolutely different. So I guess teams will be used to them, since they've all scrimmaged on them, and that's essentially the only home field advantage that the teams will have.
Louis?
Aren't there only 31 fields?
That's true. There's 31 fields.
The smart ass comment. All right, I want to get to something that I polled today. I was curious for your guys' thoughts. I'll let CK jump in and then David on this one. Who is the breakout holdover on this team this year? So not Byron Jones, not somebody that they brought in, not one of their draft picks. I polled 4. You tell me if I missed one. I put Preston Williams on there. I put Christian Wilkins on there. I put Jerome Baker on there, and then I put Mike Gesicki on there. If there's one that I'm missing, please let me know. But who is the breakout holdover this year?
Well, you named a few that are pretty likely. Part of me wants to say Christian Wilkins because this is the most cliche. Your first round pick going into his second year, make the big jump, and we certainly saw in camp he had lost some. He looks like he's remade his body just a little bit, and he looked a little more sleek, more explosive. And that's what he needs to be. If he's gonna make the jump in this league at that position, he needs to be more sleek, more explosive, and make more plays in the backfield. So that's a strong possibility. But I keep going back to this, and the guy that you didn't name is I'm gonna be paying attention to Jakeem Grant, particularly when Tua starts playing ball a little bit more. At quarterback. I think that we're going to see Tua, not necessarily today, but I think within a few weeks, they're going to start sprinkling him in there, even if it's not a decision, to just start Tua. Mm-hmm. So I think particularly when you see him in there, because Tua is such a timing-based guy, and he thrives on guys getting open quickly off the snap, and that's what Jakeem Grant can do. He also likes throwing the deep ball, always has. And so, there's nobody faster on the team, I don't think, than Jakeem. I do know that Jakeem is going to get he's going to consolidate the return duties as the first stringer right away. So he's got the chance to, any given game, you got a chance to come away with, crikey, as Simon would say, Jakeem just scored 2 touchdowns today, and that's I think why I would be looking at him. I'd be looking at him as a receiver more when Tua gets in, but he's going to get first crack at, aside from Mike Gesicki, he's going to get first crack at the slot role. So he's going to be catching some balls, and he can do a lot of different things as far as getting open. So this is, as long as he stays healthy, this is the year that he's going to actually be able to make a difference like he has for 4 or 5 games at a time, but for longer. And so I'd pay attention to him, as well as Christian Wilkins and other guys that you named perfectly good candidates as well. Gesicki is going to be the slot receiver for a lot of the time, and Preston Williams, I think the world of him, obviously. Yep. So yeah.
David, who's your surprise this year?
Listen, I think it's going to be Gesicki. I think he was really sort of emerging as a great weapon towards the end of the season. He had 5 touchdown catches in his last 6 games, right? After the bye in week 6 last year, he had 45 catches and over 500 yards receiving. So he really sort of became a legitimate piece to that offense, particularly in the second half of the season last year. And I think, as CK said, with him, being in that sort of slot role, he creates an interesting sort of matchup dynamic for other teams. Obviously he's not a blazer like Jakeem Grant is, right? But his size and his ability to make contested catches, I think, will be particularly useful. I also wouldn't be surprised if he moves to the outside from time to time and they use him in that role as well. Particularly with kind of the potentially thinned out receiving core. I think they're going to lean on Gesicki quite a bit, right? And then, Jerome Baker had a great season in his second year. I'm expecting him to take another step forward, but I really do think that Gesicki could make some noise here as he's, starting this season and continue to develop.
All right, give me a prediction here, Lewis, on the running back situation. Who ends the year? First thing, is Jordan Howard, if he's healthy, going to get the majority of the carries in your view?
You know what? If we're gonna base this off the New England style of running backs, I don't really think it's possible to make a prediction of who's gonna get the most carries, because depending on what kind of a team they're playing that week is gonna depend on who gets the most carries. We've seen for years now how Bill Belichick, he loves to basically look at what the team that they're facing is. It's like, okay, do these guys like to play power defense? Well, let's throw some speed at them. We'll throw Dion Lewis at him. We'll throw Dion Lewis at him. We'll throw speed guys at him. It's like, oh, this team is a finesse, very zone-ish guy. Okay, so we'll throw LeGarrette Blount at him today. So it really all depends on what type of a team they're going to be facing. So I can't really make a straight-up prediction as to who's going to get the most carries, because it's going to depend from week to week. Now let's say that they're not New England. I'll put a hypothetical version for you. If they are not the New England style team and they're just basing it off of who's their better guy, honestly, I would just have to say, yeah, it's probably going to be Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard has more of a starting running back pedigree, if you want to go there. He has more experience as a starting running back kind of person. Matt Breida has always been more of a supporting role, speed type, complementary back. Now, do I believe that should be the case? That's up for debate, because we've already seen that Kenyon Drake, who is not a power running back, who is definitely much more of a speed weapon on the field, when he gets carries, he makes things happen with the football. And if I'm the Dolphins, I would want the guy who can make a lot of big plays have the football a lot more often. So me personally, I would like to see a lot more of Matt Breida. I would love to have Jordan Howard be like that power guy for short yardage situations, but as far as the Dolphins are concerned, if in a vacuum, I would say Jordan Howard. But again, this is a very New England-ish system, so there's really not a way to make a surefire prediction what the Dolphins will do, only what I would do.
Alfredo, Jakari is going to join us here in a second, but Alfredo, let's go to the receiver position. Is it fair to say that after, I guess, in season 5, Devontae Parker took the leap, that is sustainable now with him as a number, again, barring injury, which with him is always an issue, that this is sustainable now with him being the Dolphins' top target? And does that change? Because I do think what CK touched on with Jakeem Grant also may apply here in some ways also, because Fitzpatrick developed a relationship with Devontae that was pretty clear. Does that change at some point if Tua replaces Fitzpatrick?
I don't think it would, but I would say this. The last time we saw Preston Williams, he was the number 1 wide receiver. Yeah. And you got to think that if he returns to any kind of health that he had last year, that he should get those targets once again. So there's just so many targets you're going to have, and that you could sprinkle around the wide receiver core. So as far as the numbers that Devontae Parker put up last year, I would doubt that he would replicate them this year. I would say that you could see a situation where Devontae Parker and Preston Williams have very similar numbers this year, and maybe neither gets 1,000 yards, but both get 900, something similar to that, and that would be just fine. That would mean you have a very, very efficient and productive wide receiver core. But I wouldn't look for Devontae to replicate those numbers from last year.
Jakari, we've got Jakari Givens with us here. I want to switch over to the DBs here for a second. I know our guy Lewis here was adamant about when people were saying trade Xavier Howard. He was like, you don't trade the position of strength. They're going into the season now. Obviously, they drafted at that position. Their biggest free agent signing was at the corner spot, and their highest paid player is at the corner spot.
Yes.
So they've obviously decided that's the direction to go in. I don't know if it shows itself today against a New England team that may be one of the weakest teams on the outside in the entire league. Yes. But how good do you think this secondary can be, and how do you think that'll play out?
Well, obviously, you got to look at the pedigree. Flores wants to use a lot of defensive backs. If you look later on in the season when Miami started having success last season, we were running 5-6 DBs out there at a time. I think that's probably going to be Miami's greatest strength. I think the great secondary will help mitigate the pass rush issues we had last year. But if you also look at it, the New England style system, pass rushers are not that big of a deal in the system. They're more relying on the defensive backs. If you look at the New England that we're trying to kind of copycat, they paid Stephon Gilmore top dollar. and they built around him with the other defensive backs that they had. So I do think Miami loves Igbenogany, so I think that's a lot of the reason. Like I like that. So I think the top three guys: Howard, Igbenogany, Jones. I think we'll see a lot of Brandon Jones as well when they go with the 3 safety set with McCain, when they slide McCain down to the other slot position. So I think we'll see a lot of 6 DBs this year. We won't see that today because I think New England's gonna probably line up and double tight all game and be a power running team. So, but I do think in the long run it's a passing league, so you have to have defensive backs rolling in and out. And we still got Nick Needham on the team, so it's kind of like Miami's very deep at the defensive back position.
CK, I want to go to you on this because you had an issue with the whole Bobby McCain at safety experiment last year. By the way, let me go through some of the inactives here. Malcolm Perry, Lynn Bowden Jr., who just recently joined the team. Clayton, whose last name I cannot pronounce. Jason Strobridge and Adam Pankey. These are the inactives today. So none of the big names that were banged up all week ended up being inactive.
But the Malcolm Perry thing probably can hurt Miami a little bit because we are thin at receiver.
Yeah, so we'll see which I guess they 4 that they're lining up today. CK, you didn't like the Bobby McCain at safety experiment, but the way that he's going to be used this season, are you more comfortable with it?
No, I don't know for sure how he's going to be used this season. He's going to be played in the deep center a lot. So, as a last line of defense, 5'9" or whatever he is, it's questionable. But I think that the real issue with him at safety, there are a couple of issues, and one, if he's the last help on a deep ball, his lack of size and length is going to matter. 2, it's hard to stay healthy for him at that position at his size. And then 3, when you get into the red zone, it's harder to hide him against tight ends when you're in the red zone. And I think that's those are the things to watch out for. I love him as a player. I think that as a leader, as a player, all the way around, he's a good player. It's just always been a little bit of a questionable fit to me, but we'll see. We'll see what he does. He might be. I think I kind of envision him playing more of a Brandon Merriweather role than playing in the slot a lot, because I think that they've got some other guys that they want to use in the slot. So yeah, I do question that. It was mentioned though, the receivers today. Malcolm Perry being out. He is a receiver, and I look forward to seeing him at some point in this game. But as long as they've still got Isaiah Ford and it appears Matt Collins is going to play, right? I mean, he's on roster and he's not in the inactives. So I think they've got some guys that can go out there and run some routes, catch some balls. But I think that the key in the game is going to be, as Jakari mentioned, the Patriots are just gonna. What would you do if you were them, right? Right. You see that Miami has built the secondary. You see that they've got Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, and all that. Noah Igbenogany in the first round, and all that. The staff and the secondary, and yet one of their big, their 1,000-snap linebackers. One of the 1,000-snap linebackers is Jerome Baker, who's kind of a lightish kind of, and Ohio State, he was kind of a hybrid type of guy. And then up front, you question whether they've got the bodies to stop you up front. So yeah, I would challenge their linebackers, Miami's linebackers. You have Cam Newton on your side, which is like having an extra running back at times. So you can go in there and pound the hell out of them, and go heavy, go double tight end, go triple tight end at times, and that's Miami's challenge today. Is they're gonna do that. They're gonna try and challenge Miami's linebackers. They're gonna challenge Miami's communication in the secondary, certainly.
Well, you mentioned it. I mean, this has been an ongoing issue for the Dolphins for years. I mean, I think of Josh Allen running all over them. Where you have a quarterback who can get loose against him, he typically does. All right, we're going to get to quarterback play and predictions here to close up. I do want to tell you, one of the sponsors and the sponsor of this particular show, which we're going to be doing every week, which is Biscayne Bay Brewing. Check them out at BiscayneBayBrewing.com. You can look up there and see which stores it's stocked in, although it is stocked in many, many Publixes around South Florida. This is the official beer of 5 Reasons Sports, also of Inter Miami and the Miami Marlins. And if anybody, Alfredo, I'm surprised you're not over here yet. If anybody wants to come by, I had 5 cases dropped off with me yesterday. So I'll try to get to these a little bit later. But everybody who drinks it seems to like it. Got the IPA, also the Marlins Lager, and this is the Pale Ale. So check out BiscayneBayBrewing.com. We're going to be doing a lot more with them going forward. Now, let's go around quick because we only got a few minutes here. I want to get to quarterback play because that's what everybody's interested in. Your predictions. Let's start here. I'll start with you, Alfredo. When do we see Tua?
Week 5.
Okay, that's simple enough. David, when do we see Tua?
Actually, I'm going to go with kind of what CK had mentioned earlier. I think they're going to start to sprinkle him in over the next couple of weeks. So maybe week 3, week 4, and then, after the bye, he may be installed permanently.
Chikari, what do you think?
2021.
Really? So not at all. That's Lewis. You say the same thing.
2021. I'm not putting Tua behind an offensive line. I don't know if they can block him.
What does the shirt say? What does the shirt say? We're gonna have.
There's a misprint.
We're gonna.
There's a misprint.
I gotta get Smoot off his ass to make that a 1. Okay, we'll sell a bunch more of those.
Yeah,
it's an easy fix.
I just don't see it. It's no reward to playing him. There's gonna be no fans in the stadium. Like, you want to be able to get, like, when Tua go in, we want to be at a pack house because everybody's excited. And I don't think you should risk like an injury-prone player behind an offensive line that you're not sure of yet right now.
I'm with. I didn't really think of this, but I'm with CK on this. I think the sprinkle in is the direction to go. A little bit like Michael Vick behind Chris Chandler, which I remember happening down here in the stadium. I could see a little bit of that.
Memory as long as you.
Well, I think a couple of packages maybe, that you work in there in games. I do think the fan thing plays into it somewhat. Because you're not obviously building the momentum for it, but I do think getting his feet wet in there a little bit, letting him take a couple hits isn't the worst idea. All right, let's get to predictions for today. Start with you, CK. Who do you like?
I like the Dolphins, but as this is going to be like a kind of a pound game, or pound them up the middle all the time, I kind of think that it's going to be something weird like 19-12. I think I predicted 17-12 on the podcast. So I think the Dolphins will win it, but it's going to be kind of low scoring.
Alfredo?
24-17 Dolphins. I think there's 2 numbers to look for, 35 and 130. Dolphins get 35 rushes, they win the game. They run for 130 yards, they win the game. I think that's something that they're going to try to do, control the clock, run the ball up a pretty inexperienced interior defensive line and linebacker core for the New England Patriots. Take advantage of it, they win 24-17. Late touchdown, Preston Williams.
David?
I think 20-13 for the Dolphins. I do think it's going to be relatively low scoring, but 20-13, Miami's going to take this one.
Chikari?
I think I just don't think it was. I think the Patriots win, just for a simple fact because Miami didn't have a preseason. You got to go at experience with Bill Belichick on the other side, and a guy with something to prove this season is Bill Belichick, and you add Cam Newton with something to prove. I see them winning a close 24-21 game. Wouldn't be surprised if Miami came out on top, but I got to go with Cam Newton and Bill Belichick today.
All right, I already did this over at mybookie.ag, so use our code 5 on the floor. You could use, what's your code, Alfredo?
3 yards.
All right, so you can use 3 yards. It's a Dolphin game day, okay? Go back to using the Heat code on Tuesday. So go to mybookie.ag, use 3 yards, and I already took the Dolphins. I got 6.5 over there. I took them on the money line. I think that they win today. I just think when you're talking about New England mixing in so many guys, and then Belichick's history is always not to put in a lot early and allow his guys to master something and then get better as the season goes on. And now he's got a lot of younger guys that have to master the stuff, and he doesn't have Tom-Brady to fix it. So my only concern in this game is Newton getting loose as a runner. I have too many nightmares about that with the Dolphins.
Remember that
rushing yards today.
Remember that Panthers game? He broke like a 65-yard run.
I know that is a concern, but I do think I think you got a pretty strong Fitzpatrick game today, and I'm with Alfredo. I think Preston Williams is going to sort of re-arrive. I think we kind of forgot where he was going last year when he got hurt. So I think 2 touchdowns for Preston Williams and a 24-14 win.
Yeah,
Here's the next factor.
He still got to get his feet wet coming off the injury, though, coming in the live game play. But like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if Miami won because I think they got more continuity. But I just think it's not really effective being on the road anymore. But yeah, I think they win 20. I mean, Patriots give 24-21.
All right, so we got 5.
The X factor. Trevor Lawrence declared for the draft this weekend.
Yep.
So
right.
whatever the game plan was, I think they just dumped it.
Yeah, whatever it is, it's been dumped in the sea. Boston Harbor, it's been thrown over with the rest of the tea. All right, CK Parrott, Alf _Arteaga, by DL Fernandez, Louis D. Sung, and King Jock 24. Thanks for joining us. We'll be here every Sunday. We're going to start beefing up the Dolphins content on 5reasonsports.com as well. Check out 3 Yards Per Carry now twice a week, recording Monday and Thursday. And the Heat